friends, it's Wednesday at Northeast Branch Library, which means it's time for another family night craft. So I've been doing ceramics for the past couple of years and I wanted to have an opportunity to work on it with all of you. Now we don't have a kiln at the library, so I thought we would do a fun project for beginners with air dry clay. But if you ever want to get into ceramics, it is the same exact process. You will just fire it in a kiln afterwards. But this is really easy. It takes almost no cleanup. There's no kiln required. You just need clay, water, a little toothpick, and time to let it dry. So let's work on it together. One last note I want to make. I did say it's easy to clean, but there's a big exception. So depending on your kit, you will either have white air dry clay or terracotta air dry clay. The white clay, it might leave a little smudge, but just wipe it off. The terracotta, however, I will warn you, leave it on too long, it can stain your hands a little like dark brown. So I do recommend making sure to wash your hands afterwards, not touching everything. If possible, you could put something down to cover the surface you're working on. Just don't put it on something that you're worried about getting stained until it is dry, in which case it will not rub color off on anything. All right, if you're ready, let's get started. All right, so in your bag, you will have complete instructions as well as a big piece of clay. And what else you will need is some sort of toothpick or scratchy thing with a point. You can always use your fingernails. You'll see what I'm talking about. You'll also need a little bit of water and a cup to mix what is called our slip in. So let's talk about slip first. I'm going to start by getting a little piece of clay out of my bag. And you might ask, why do I have it in a bag? Well, first of all, it's an easy way to get you all your clay, but we've got to remember there's a big difference between ceramic clay and air dry clay, and that is that this will just dry out into a solid form on its own and be nice and complete in the air. So it will dry out fast. It'll dry out actually very fast and be hard to use. Now, regular ceramic clay does dry out, but it takes a long time and it still needs to be fired afterwards. However, slip is the same technique. So what it is slip is going to be sort of a liquid clay we'll use as a glue for building our coil pot. So I'm going to put a little bit of clay in my cup and add some water. And what we're going to do is basically smush this up and mix it with the water until it becomes sort of a thick liquid, a little bit looser than a paste, but you can see that it's starting to come apart. And now this is a technique that people use in hand building in ceramics. We're going to be adding pieces of clay together, but the problem is if we do not attach them properly, they might fall apart when they dry. It's not stable. If you're using ceramics, they might explode or just fall apart in the kiln. So we are using something called the slip and score method. And you can see why I said this terracotta clay is a little messy. So we've got this paste, that's our slip. But scoring is why we have this tool here. So basically, we're building something. When you build a building, you don't just stick all the bricks together and hope the house stays in place. You need to put something to stick all the bricks together in between. For our clay, that is our slip. But to help that clay stick in there with the slip, we are going to score it beforehand. So basically, we are making a bunch of little scratch marks in our clay, that is the scoring, and then we put the slip in like grout when you're tiling something, and that'll help everything stick together. So now that we've gone over score and slip, let's actually make our pot. So we'll start by taking our clay out of the bag, but actually what I'm going to do is just get enough out for my bottom. It's always a good idea when working with clay, whether air dry or ceramic, to keep it wrapped up. If you're not using it, it'll keep it moist longer. So we want to start making our coil pot, not by making a coil, but by making the bottom. And you can see here, I'm rolling it into a ball to start. Now this is the easiest way we'll be able to make a disc or a pancake for the bottom. And you want to try to add equal pressure with your hands and just roll it back and forth, and you'll see it starts to become very round. We see the motion from the top or the bottom. Yeah, and if it looks a little wobbly, it's probably because one of your hands was using more pressure than the other. That's okay, it happens to me too. Just sort of pat it into shape so it's a nice round ball. And then we're going to go on our surface. Remember, something that you're not going to worry about staining. And we're going to smush it flat. So it's the size that you want it to be at the bottom. And this is your pot, you can make it however you want, but I think this looks good to me. So to show you in advance, I'm going to show you where I'm scoring the pot. So you can see here, let me zoom in. I'm making these little marks. And what you're doing when you're scoring, other than making the marks, is you're making these marks exactly where you want to be attaching your coils. So I want mine on the outside, balls of a pot go on the outside. So that's where I'm adding the scratch marks. And like I said, this is a technique not just for air dry clay, it's not just for kids. This is what you use when you are hand building ceramics. So if you want to be a ceramicist someday, you're going to have to learn to score and slip. Okay, so this is all ready to go. Now it's time to make coils. Let's zoom back out. So I'm only going to take the clay I need at a time. So what I'll do is you want to take it into a ball again. That's a good starting point, but we're not going to stop there this time. What you want to do after you form this ball, and I'm going to take my base and move it to the side so we have room, is you're going to roll it into basically a snake, a coil. So you'll start with one hand until it's long enough. And I recommend don't press down hard. That'll make it have ridges, it won't be perfectly circular, it might get sort of wonky. Light pressure. It'll take time and patience, but it will give you the best coil. And what you want to do is not just press in one place because you'll end up with a divot in between. You want to go sort of from right to left, left to right, and add equal pressure. But if you see it becomes like not round, take it and squish it down so it's about equal all the way around, and then keep rolling. So let me roll a snake. And you'll add 2 hands with equal pressure once the snake is long enough. And basically you'll just keep rolling it until it reaches the thickness and the length that you want. One thing I want to mention as I'm finishing up this coil is that one thing to keep in mind is the thicker your clay is, the longer it will take to dry. Now, unlike working in a traditional kiln, which is the oven in which we bake our clay, if it's ceramic clay, we don't have to worry about anything exploding. Air dry clay is not going to explode, but the thicker it is, the longer it'll take to dry. So if you are just dying to have this be dry, don't make your coils really thick. And one other note I want to make is these will not be food safe. You need ceramic with proper glazes to be drinking and eating off of these. So this should be for decoration only. So I have my coil. I want to make it shorter, so I'm just going to take this, separate it. So now I'm ready to attach it. Let's zoom in. So this is where our slip comes in. We want to score and slip, but you need scoring on both this piece and that piece where they attach. So I'm going to add some little lines here where I'm going to attach them. And now I'm just going to take my fingers, you could also use a paintbrush, something like that, and I'm going to add some of the slip onto at least one of the pieces. You could do both, but really just needs one because it'll form a sandwich between the 2 scores and the slip. Make sure you get a decent amount on there and don't just get it slightly wet. And now you want to take the part that's scored and attach it to the other part that's scored. So we have the scoring, we have the slip, but there's one more step that's required for basic coil building. So you can see if you look at the side, sort of zoom it in here, that you can see the edges between. Now if we want this to stick together well, the inside we're going to smush together with our finger. So you basically just take your finger And you want to make it so we have the lines on the outside so it looks like a nice coil pot, but the inside we want to be smooth. That'll help it stay together even better. Also, it has a nice smooth surface for if you want to put things inside of it. Okay, so now you know how to basic build, and now you want to add all of your coils, or as many as you want, to complete your coil pot. Now I'll give you a pro tip here. You don't need to just add in a circle. You can make, for instance, a spiral, like a spiral shape with your snake. Add that, and you could do a row of spirals going across and lay on top. You can be as creative with your coils as you want to, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to make a nice simple coil pot. I do want to give another idea out here. If you don't want to make something this basic, if you want to make something out of swirls in a special shape to make it easier, you can take something like a plastic dish that you like, a bowl, line it with plastic wrap, and then lay the coils inside of it. Make sure that you are slipping and scoring and smoothing at the end, sort of like an SSS. But you can do that and make a special shape that way. I've done that before with ceramics, and you can do it with air dry clay as well. So now I'm just going to add my coils. All right, so the form of my pot is complete. Now if you look inside, you see it's nice and smooth. At the outside we can see the coils. Now something I recommend is you can take your scratching scoring tool, write your name or initials, maybe the year, so it's a nice keepsake, or if you make it with friends or family, you can tell them apart. But now the final step is to let this dry in a nice dry place for usually about 2 to 3 days. So it can be completely dry, and then you can use it however you want. Just remember, again, it is not food safe, so don't put this in the microwave, the oven, or your mouth. Don't use it to store any liquids that you're going to put in your body. Also, if you want to get creative, just so you know, you can add attachments like handles, little decorations. Just make sure whatever you're adding, you're using the slipping and scoring method. But I hope you had a lot of fun with this activity. So that's it for tonight's family night. I hope you had fun. Maybe this will inspire some of you to start pursuing ceramics. If that's something you're interested in seeing more of from our library, let me know. We can always do more projects down the road, but look in the description box below. I've linked some things about coil pots throughout history that are really interesting and might be great to parents if you want your kids to learn something extra through this art project, other than, of course, the important construction things we learn from ceramics. So I hope you'll have a great day. Make sure, again, if you watch this video before picking one up, to get a go pack at Northeast with the clay you'll need for this. And I hope to see you all next Wednesday for another Family Night Craft. Bye, friends.
Never revealing no secrets you're keeping, these promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell.